The morning disaster. Sienna Reed jolted awake to her phone buzzing insistently beneath her pillow. She grabbed it with fumbling fingers, squinting at the screen through sleep-crusted eyes. 8:47 a.m. No, 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 she gasped, throwing off her covers. She was supposed to be at Apex Technologies by 8:30, and the subway alone took 35 minutes. Sienna stumbled to her tiny bathroom in the studio apartment she could barely afford, splashing cold water on her face. Her reflection stared back with puffy eyes and tangled blonde hair. She had stayed up past midnight finishing the market analysis report due today, finally falling asleep around 2. Setting multiple alarms had been part of the plan. Clearly, she had either slept through them or forgotten to actually set them. She brushed her teeth in record time and ran to her closet. That was when reality crashed over her like ice water. Her work clothes, the professional blouses, the pencil skirts, the blazers she had invested in when she got this job, were all at the laundromat. She dropped them off Saturday afternoon and completely forgotten to pick them up. The laundromat didn't open until 9. Sienna stared at her nearly empty closet with rising panic. Her options were jeans with a suspicious stain on the knee, sweatpants, or the emerald green dress she had worn Friday night on a date. The dress was beautiful, expensive enough that she had felt guilty buying it. It hugged every curve, the hemline hitting several inches above her knees. The neckline cut to show just enough without being scandalous. Perfect for a nice dinner. Absolutely inappropriate for a corporate office. But it was clean, it was pressed, and it was her only option. With trembling hands, Sienna pulled on the dress. She found a black cardigan buried in the back of her closet and threw it over, hoping it would make the outfit more professional. It didn't help much. She still looked like she was dressed for a cocktail party, not a day of financial analysis. Sienna grabbed her bag, checked that her laptop and the printed report were inside, and ran for the subway. On the train, she practiced explanations in her head. She could say she had a family emergency and had to leave from her mother's house. No, lying was stupid. She could just be honest. Laundry mishap, running late, complete disaster of a morning. By the time she reached Apex Technologies' gleaming downtown building, it was 9:15, 45 minutes late. Sienna took a deep breath and pushed through the glass doors into the marble lobby. Immediately, she felt eyes on her. A security guard's gaze lingered too long. 2 men in suits stopped their conversation to stare. A woman from accounting did a double take, her expression shifting from surprise to judgment in seconds. Sienna kept her head high and walked toward the elevators, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She could feel her face burning, could sense the whispers starting behind her. The elevator ride to the 7th floor felt eternal. When the doors opened to her department, the usual morning chatter died almost instantly. Dozens of faces turned toward her. Sienna felt every single gaze cataloging her appearance, the dress, the bare legs, the way the fabric clung to her body. Well, someone had an interesting weekend, came from a voice from her right. Marcus from the analytics team leaned back in his chair, a smirk plastered across his face. Did you forget this is an office, not a nightclub? Nervous laughter rippled through nearby desks. Sienna's jaw tightened, but she kept walking toward her desk in the corner. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. "Sienna?" another voice called out. "Brad from marketing. You look amazing. Seriously, maybe you should dress like this every day." "Brad, that's inappropriate," someone muttered, but more people were staring now. Sienna finally reached her desk and sank into her chair, her whole body trembling. She powered on her computer with shaking fingers, determined to focus on work. She had the market analysis to submit, 3 client reports to review, and a presentation to prepare for Thursday. If she could just put her head down and work, maybe people would move on. "Sienna?" a quiet voice beside her. Jason, the intern who sat at the neighboring desk, was blushing furiously. "Are you okay? You look really stressed." "I'm fine," Sienna said, her voice coming out sharper than intended. "Just running late." "Right. Well, you look really nice. Not that you don't always look professional, but today the dress is very... Anyway, I'll just let you work." Sienna buried her face in her hands for just a moment, allowing herself 3 seconds of pure mortification before pulling herself together. This was fine. It was one day. She would survive. Except 20 minutes later, her phone rang. Sienna Reed answered. Ms. Reed, this is Elena from the executive floor. Mr. Drake would like to see you in his office, immediately. Sienna's stomach dropped. Rowan Drake, the CEO, the man who built Apex Technologies from a startup in his garage to a major player in the tech industry. The man whose picture hung in the lobby with quotes about innovation and integrity beneath it. She was going to be fired. That was the only possible explanation. Her inappropriate outfit had reached the executive level, and now Rowan Drake himself was going to personally terminate her employment. "I'll be right up," Sienna managed to say. She stood on legs that felt like water and walked toward the elevators. Every person on the floor watched her go. She heard Marcus whisper something to Brad, and both of them laughed. Jason looked genuinely worried. Michelle from HR was watching with narrowed eyes, already mentally preparing the termination paperwork, probably. The elevator ride to the 20th floor felt like ascending to an execution. Sienna's mind raced through the financial calculations. How many weeks could she survive on her savings? How quickly could she find another job? Would this firing follow her, make other companies hesitant to hire her? The executive floor was a different world. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Modern art hung on pristine white walls. The carpeting was so thick, her heels sank into it. Everything whispered money and power, and "this is not your world." A woman in an impeccable gray suit sat behind a sleek reception desk. "Sienna Reed?" she asked with a professional smile. "Yes." "Follow me, please." Sienna followed, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. They walked down a wide hallway and stopped in front of a dark wood door. The woman knocked twice. "Send her in," came a deep voice from inside. The woman opened the door and gestured for Sienna to enter. "Ms. Reed to see you, Mr. Drake." Sienna stepped into the office, and the door closed softly behind her. The CEO's unexpected response. Rowan Drake's office was massive. Windows stretched across 2 walls, offering panoramic views of the city. Bookshelves lined another wall, filled with business texts and what looked like actual literary novels. The furniture was modern but comfortable, nothing like the cold corporate aesthetic Sienna had expected. And behind the enormous desk sat Rowan Drake himself. Sienna had seen his photo countless times, in the lobby, in company newsletters, in business magazines, but photographs hadn't captured the sheer presence of the man. He was tall even sitting down, broad-shouldered beneath a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His dark hair was slightly silver at the temps, and his eyes were a striking gray that seemed to see straight through her defensive walls. He stood as she entered, which surprised her. CEOs didn't usually stand for junior analysts. "Ms. Reed," he said, his voice unexpectedly warm, "please, sit down." Sienna sat in one of the leather chairs facing his desk, her hands clenched together in her lap. Rowan sat back down, folding his hands on the desk. For a long moment he simply looked at her, his expression unreadable. "I suppose you know why you're here," he said finally. "My outfit," Sienna said quietly. "It's inappropriate, I know. I'm sorry. There were circumstances, but that's no excuse. I understand if you need to terminate my employment." Rowan's eyebrows rose slightly. "Terminate your employment? Isn't that why I'm here?" "No." Rowan leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Tell me about these circumstances." Sienna blinked, confused. "I'm sorry. You said there were circumstances. I'd like to hear them. This was not how I had imagined this conversation going." Sienna took a shaky breath. "I overslept, badly, and all my work clothes are at laundromat, which doesn't open until 9. This dress was literally the only clean, presentable thing I had. I know it's not appropriate, and I'm sorry. I should have called in sick or something. Anything would have been better than showing up like this." Rowan was quiet for a moment, his gray eyes never leaving her face. "How long have you worked here, Ms. Reed?" 6 weeks? And in those 6 weeks, what's your attendance record been?" Sienna hesitated. "Perfect. Until today." "Your performance reviews?" I think they've been good?" "They've been exceptional," Rowan corrected. "Your supervisor notes that you're consistently early, your work is thorough, and you've already identified 3 inefficiencies in our market analysis protocols. You've saved this company approximately $40,000 in the 6 weeks you've been here." Sienna stared at him, not sure how to respond. "So we have an employee with a perfect record having one difficult morning? And instead of offering support or understanding, your colleagues spent the morning making inappropriate comments and judging you. Is that an accurate summary?" "I suppose so," Sienna said carefully. Rowan stood and walked to the window, his hands sliding into his pockets. "I built this company from nothing, Ms. Reed. I know what it's like to struggle, to have everything go wrong at once, to feel like one mistake will cost you everything." He turned to face her. "Good employees are rare. People who genuinely care about their work are even rarer. And the ability to maintain grace under pressure, that's the rarest quality of all." Sienna felt tears prick at her eyes, but refused to let them fall. "You're not being fired," Rowan said firmly. "In fact, I owe you an apology. The culture on your floor clearly has issues if employees feel comfortable making the inappropriate comments I've heard. That's a failure of leadership, not a failure on your part." "Thank you," Sienna whispered.
Building connection. Over the following weeks, Sienna settled back into her routine. The dress incident became office legend, but the tone had shifted. Instead of mockery, there was a certain respect. She was the woman Rowan Drake himself had defended. Marcus avoided her entirely. Brad apologized awkwardly. Jason remained sweetly supportive. What Sienna didn't expect was Rowan Drake's continued interest in her work. It started small. He requested her market analysis reports directly instead of waiting for them to filter up through department heads. Then he invited her to a strategy meeting, asking for her input on a potential expansion into Southeast Asian markets. Her insights were sharp and unconventional, and Sienna could see him processing her ideas with genuine interest. "You see patterns others miss," Rowan said after one particular meeting. "How?" Sienna shrugged, suddenly shy under his direct attention. "I don't know. I just try to look at data like it's telling a story. What's missing is often more important than what's there." "Exactly." Rowan smiled, and the expression transformed his usually serious face into something warmer, more approachable. "You have a rare skill." Coffee meetings became routine. Rowan would summon her to his office or meet her in the executive cafe, ostensibly to discuss projects, but the conversations often drifted beyond work. Books they'd read, childhood experiences, and the challenges of building a career from nothing. "I grew up in a trailer park in Nevada. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. People look at me now and assume I came from money, that everything was handed to me. They don't see the years of struggle. My mom raised me alone, waitress and house cleaner. I worked full-time through college, graduated with student loans I'll be paying off until I'm 40. I know what it's like to feel like you don't belong in spaces like this." Rowan's gray eyes held hers. "You belong here, Sienna. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The way he said her name, soft, almost reverent, made something flutter in her chest. Lunch meetings followed. They'd escaped the building entirely, finding small restaurants where they could talk without the weight of corporate hierarchy pressing down on them. Rowan was different outside the office, more relaxed, quicker to laugh, surprisingly self-deprecating about his own success. "Sometimes I wake up and think it's all a dream," he confessed over Thai food one afternoon, "that I blink and be back in that trailer, back to having nothing. That fear never really goes away, does it? No matter how much you achieve." "No, but it's easier with someone who understands." Rowan reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. The touch was brief but electric. They began staying late together, working on a major project analyzing emerging market opportunities. The office would empty around 6, leaving them alone in the quiet building. They'd order dinner, spread papers across Rowan's conference table, and lose themselves in strategy discussions that felt more like intellectual foreplay than work. One evening, after successfully presenting their joint analysis to the board, they were cleaning up the conference room. It was nearly 11, the city glittering through the windows, and Sienna felt giddy with success. "We did it," she said, turning to find Rowan standing very close. You did it, he corrected. Your insights drove that entire presentation. Our insights, Sienna said firmly. Rowan smiled. You know what I realized tonight? What? That I look forward to these late nights more than anything else in my week. Not because of the work, though that's intellectually stimulating, because of you, because talking with you, sparring with you intellectually, seeing how your mind works, it makes everything better. Sienna's breath caught. Rowan? I know this is complicated. I know I'm your boss and there are power dynamics and 100 reasons why I shouldn't say this. Rowan stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and woodsy. But Sienna, I'm falling for you. Have been since the morning you walked into my office in that green dress, terrified and brave and refusing to make excuses for circumstances beyond your control. I thought about you too, Sienna admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But Rowan, every conversation we have, every moment we spend together, I don't want it to end. Rowan cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. Tell me to stop and I will. Tell me this is wrong and we'll go back to being strictly professional. But Sienna, if there's any chance you feel the same way. Sienna kissed him. It was tentative at first, testing, questioning. Then Rowan's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close, and the kiss deepened into something urgent and real. Sienna's hands found their ways to his hair, fingers tangling in the soft strands as weeks of suppressed attraction poured into this single moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Rowan rested his forehead against hers. I want to do this right. Not sneak around, not hide, but Sienna, your career, I won't let anyone question your achievements because of our relationship. So what do we do? We're honest, we're transparent, we establish boundaries at work and build something real outside of it. Have dinner with me tomorrow. Not a working dinner, a real date. Yes, Sienna said simply. Absolutely yes. The next evening, Rowan picked her up at her apartment, deliberately arriving in casual clothes, jeans and a black sweater that made him look younger, more relaxed. They went to a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood far from the financial district, somewhere they could just be Rowan and Sienna, not CEO and analyst. Conversation flowed easily. They talked about everything, favorite books, childhood dreams, fears and hopes. Rowan shared his anxiety about living up to his own success, the constant pressure to innovate. Sienna opened up about her imposter syndrome, the voice in her head that insisted she didn't belong in spaces like this. You know what I see when I look at you? Rowan said, reaching across the table to take her hand. Someone brilliant and hard-working who earned every single thing she has. Someone who doesn't let setbacks define her. Someone I admire profoundly. You see me more clearly than I see myself, Sienna admitted. Then let me be your mirror. After dinner, they walked through the city, hand in hand, talking and laughing. When Rowan walked her to her door, they stood in the hallway for a long moment, neither wanting the evening to end. Come up, Sienna asked softly. Rowan searched her face. Are you sure? I'm sure. Inside her small apartment, they moved together naturally. Rowan was tender and attentive, taking his time, making Sienna feel cherished rather than rushed. They made love slowly, learning each other's bodies, building intimacy through touch and whispered words. Afterwards, wrapped in her sheets, with city lights filtering through the windows, Sienna felt something fundamental shift inside her. This was real, this mattered, and she was brave enough to want it. Stay, she whispered against his chest. Always, Rowan replied.